How's it going, guys? And welcome back to another episode of the Covenant Podcast. We have another exciting week for you here. Sorry we didn't get one out last week. We had some schedule mix-ups and all that fun stuff, but we're going to have some really good ones these next 2 coming weeks. We have Lynn Cranfield with us
Hi.
today. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We got Aaron.
What's
Hey,
up?
Aaron.
How are y'all?
Before we get started with this and kind of Lynn sharing her story and just us asking her some questions about some of the great stuff that God's done in her life. If you guys have any questions or you guys want us to have a certain person on or topics you want us to talk about, all you need to do is email covenantchurchnc1@gmail.com. And we check that weekly to see what you guys want us to do, some topics you want us to go over. So go check that out. So let's get into it. Aaron, what are we talking about today?
All right. So kind of in the spirit of outreach that we've been going down these last few weeks, I think we're bringing in the testimony aspect of it this week with Miss
Right.
Lynn here. And I guess just starting out, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you maybe got to Covenant and just the things that brought you here and tied you
Well, I
here.
want to say God does have a sense of humor. Being at Covenant, where my daughter actually grew up,
Right.
in the church.
Right.
So my story started really early when I was young. I remember a preacher coming to my house when I was real little and asking for my mom to be saved, and I actually got saved. And I knew something was, something to that because I felt that.
Right.
And then, like everyone else, I did go to church a lot. My mom took me and dropped me off, but I never really knew about Jesus.
Right.
We just colored pictures or whatever. And
Right.
and then, as I became a teenager and my mom died at 20, I was rebellious. And so I was rebellious the whole time. Even I've been married 3 times.
Mhm.
Well, my third marriage now is great, but
Right.
and so you never set out to say, "Oh, I'm going to be married 3 times with 2 different
Sure. Right.
kids, 2 different."
Right. Right.
So with the choices that I made, that's what happened. And
Mhm.
of course, growing up in an abusive home, rebellious as well, but really didn't become to know Jesus until in my late 30s.
Okay.
Because when I married my third husband, I knew something had to change.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
and so I started seeking out a church and I found one. And then I knew, um, I wanted to go that route, but I really didn't know about Jesus. I just knew,
Kind of playing the part.
right. Then until one day, my husband's dad, we were talking about Jesus one day. I had been in church, for a little while, and he said, Jesus is a personal relationship.
Right.
And so you have to take that, you know, it's a personal relationship. It's not about the people you sit with, although that is part of the body.
Mhm. Sure.
But once he told me that, that was an impact in my whole life.
The relationship part.
Relationship
Just
with
changed
Jesus.
it, right? Yeah.
Because once I knew that and figured that out, that was a game changer for me.
Was there kind of describe that moment how did that, I'm just curious how that conversation, do you know how the conversation came up when you guys were just talking about Jesus where you kind of realized that this is personal or?
No, he said, well, it's because, we were talking about how, what the preacher had talked about
Okay.
and then the people, you sit with. And then when he said personal, I'm like, what do you mean personal?
Mhm.
He said, well, it's a personal relationship. You talk with him, you pray and I still didn't really understand. But then once I really started thinking about it,
Right.
I'm like, wow.
Right.
Wow. Because I always did feel a tap on the shoulder where I felt like God was talking to me, but I really didn't know what it was.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of people deal with that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of people still have that idea of God being on the other side of the clouds. It's almost he's there when we need him, but if not, he's not. It's not intertwined in our everyday. And
Right.
and I know Ryan's getting ready to go with something, but my question would be, maybe you can tie in after if he's got a comment on it too. But I think, and that may be it. Most in my experience in talking to other believers in my life and other people that you hear a testimony, there was like an aha moment.
Mhm.
There was that time when it was something major. I've got my story when there was a time that, because I grew up in church my whole life.
Mhm.
But was that your aha moment, or would you say like later on there was something later maybe that grabbed and took you to a different level, or um, maybe
Well, I had
elaborate?
seen evidence of God,
Mhm,
but I really didn't understand it.
Mhm.
And I knew God was chasing me,
mhm,
but I felt like I had nothing to offer because, you name it, I've been through it. The only
mhm.
thing I haven't been through is I haven't been homeless,
Okay.
but I've been
Right.
close to it.
Yeah. Wow.
I've had a lot of things happen in my
Yeah.
life. I've, you know, contemplating suicide. I've had an abortion. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
and I'm not proud of it, but I knew God forgives
Sure.
me,
Right.
and I feel like I
Exactly.
want to help someone.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping my testimony will help someone. But that was an aha moment for me because when I figured out it was personal, when he told me that,
Mhm.
because when I look back, I seen at one point um, during my first, earlier years, I had to pay car insurance,
Mhm.
and I didn't have the money to pay the car insurance. And then I got something in the mail and it said it was paid.
Wow.
Well, I
Wow.
called the insurance company. Actually, I got a check back. And so I called the insurance company. I said, no, I didn't pay that bill. They said, ma'am, you don't owe the bill. And I said, well, you don't understand. I didn't pay it and I'm getting a check back. And they said, no, you cash it. It's yours.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't understand that.
Right.
So I knew God was telling me something
Right.
Yeah.
and
He was
chasing
pursuing
me.
you. Yeah.
But when he said personal,
Mhm.
that clicked for me.
Right. Yeah.
And
No,
then
that's
I
good.
started deeply praying and understanding. And when I prayed for something, I seen evidence because
Wow.
I believed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe what God told me.
Yeah.
And he says
That's good.
in the Bible, you pray fervently. You know how you
Fervently
say it?
prays. Right. Yeah.
Yes. And I believe
That's good.
that.
No, that's very good. That's good. So when that's happening, that's going on, because I'm a firm believer in life is a great teacher. I tell kids that it's been a student pastor, and now I believe in my own life. Life is a great teacher if we allow it and we're looking through it,
Right.
especially through the eyes and through the covering of the Holy Spirit. I think it takes it to a different level.
Hmm.
And we say this all the time. I say this, and Pastor Mike kind of touched on it. And I said I would like to add this to the book of Proverbs, but can't add to or take away from the word, so nobody get upset. I know that. But smart people learn from their own mistakes, but wise people learn from other people's mistakes. And so as you've walked through that, and life is an unbelievable teacher. So it sounds like through life experiences, even what's brought you to a place today, correct? I
Right.
mean, where your heart's at today. And so, I mean, where is that? What does that look like in that journey of
Well, and one of the things I love the most about God is He's a God of order,
yeah, that's good.
and I love order.
Mm.
So, with that being said, today I only pray for God's best for me because I know if I pray, it's something totally different. And when I know God tells me something, I hear it. It may not be in my time of life when He tells me that it's going to happen,
Right.
and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
But but I pray first before I react.
that's good. Yeah,
I don't do it personally as far as off the cuff. I have to think about it, pray about it. It might take me a month to think about it, but I have to process it and hear what God is telling me first before I react
right.
to
Yeah.
anything.
That's good.
Yeah, no, I think believers can sometimes easily. That's good. Well, you obviously have a lot more experience than I do, and so it's because sometimes I do feel like when you pray for something and it doesn't get answered, like you just have to realize that it isn't in our time,
Right,
and like what we want at that time isn't always His wants and His needs,
right.
and what He wants to give us at least.
That's good.
So I guess moving forward, what are some of the ways that just like the check in the mail thing that you've seen like miracles in your life? Like, I'm really interested in your past. I want to know like kind of a little more with that somehow.
Well, when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
in order to get your point across, you had to yell.
Mhm.
And we wasn't allowed to talk back to our parents. And if we said anything, regardless, we were talking back. So we wasn't really allowed to talk about anything. And my mom and dad, they yell at each other. That's how they talk. So growing up, that's how I talk. So that's just how it
Mhm.
was.
Right.
And I didn't really understand that as far as the way you talk to people. I was yelling at them, trying to
Right.
get my point across
Just
because I
communicating
couldn't hear.
too, though.
Nobody would listen to
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
Right.
And so my whole life I was like that.
Yeah.
Even in my third marriage,
Right.
that's why I knew something had to change
Right. Right.
because I was like starting an argument when I would yell back.
Mhm.
But that
Mhm.
I wasn't really starting an argument. In my mind, that was the way I
Mhm.
was okay to talk. So I know that that come across as wrath, like
Mhm.
I was mad about something. And deep down, I guess I really was because
Sure.
I couldn't
Right.
get nobody to hear me. So I had to yell.
Right.
Mhm.
That's good.
Um,
Right.
so and since God is a God of order, I've learned not to react and to tone it down when I try to talk. So now, even with my granddaughter, I tell my daughter it's okay for her to talk, and even if she yells, that's fine. Let her talk her piece out,
Right.
and then you could correct on how she says it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so
That's good. That's good. Now, so if when looking at your family and looking at Stacy being your daughter and the changes that have happened there, have have y'all discussed those type things? I mean, as far as with her and how that has, I think the transition that each of y'all have had over the course of the last few years is amazing to me, and what this relationship with the Lord has meant. I wouldn't have thought that because I see the fruit of your relationship with the Lord. Has that been something that y'all have worked together in? Has the Lord just brought it together at the same time, or how has that
well,
happened?
no, when I was young, I mean, when I was going through my rebellions,
Mhm.
and then my second husband who was abusive,
Mhm.
Stacy went to live with her dad
Okay.
because I couldn't control what went on in the house.
Right. Right.
So her and I relationship has always been somewhat good,
Right.
but we've had our differences as far as mom and
You mean a
daughter.
daughter and mom not
Yes.
getting along? I can't believe
Well, we've
that.
always got along,
Right.
but I've been out of the picture a
Those
good
times
bit.
come. I got you. Right.
So, and it's amazing how I even got the Lincoln thing.
Mhm.
Just touch
How's
on
that?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that?
Um, I always wanted to be where she was,
Mhm. Where
and
were you before that?
I was living in Charlotte.
Okay.
Okay.
So I told my husband, I said, I want to move to Lincoln. I'm having a grandbaby and I want to live there. And he said, well, no, we're not. We're not moving to Lincoln. You can forget that.
Mhm.
I said, okay. I smiled deep down and I knew we were coming because I told God that was the desire of my heart. And
Right.
that I want to be here with my grandbaby. And so he's like, no, you just forget it. And we would drive up here and he was like, no, we're not, it's not happening. And then he saw a house up here and he's like, oh, wow. Because somebody told him about a house.
Right.
And so we started looking. And, as time went on, I got here.
Mhm.
So I knew we were coming. I knew.
Right. Right.
But my and Stacy's relationship is amazing.
Mhm.
We have a story
Right.
just on that.
Sure. Sure.
Um, and she does listen to me somewhat when I talk to her about Ella, some of my experiences, and
Mhm.
she's appreciated that.
Sure.
So,
Sure. It's just been great to see that transformation. I mean, it really has, and to not knowing the whole background,
right.
but to hear even today and a little bit, God's mercy and grace is just it's overwhelming sometimes. I'm
It
sure you guys
is.
know that,
It
but
is.
that's really cool. That's really good.
When you were kind of talking about when you first got saved, you felt like you weren't worthy or you failed God. What would you tell someone how to go through that process of saying, okay, even though I've done this, and this, I am enough. God still loves me. How would you tell someone or give some advice about that?
Well, I mean, because I always thought everyone else was perfect
Hmm.
and not me, because you don't hear people's stories.
Right.
But after I started reading the Bible and started to understand God picks ordinary people to do extraordinary
That's good.
things,
Right.
I'm like, well, maybe I could be one of those.
Right.
Maybe I could help someone out with what I've been through.
Sure.
With the divorces and things that I've been through with contemplating suicide and
Sure.
abortions and things that I only I just know that God has forgiven me. And I know that, even his disciples did not do the right things always. So I felt like since he um, picks, ex, ordinary people,
Yeah.
I felt like that he has wiped my slate clean and I am worthy.
Yeah. Why not me?
I am
Yeah,
worthy.
that's it. That's really good. So if you were going to tell somebody maybe 2 or 3 things to pick themselves up out of that unworthiness feeling, what were maybe through, I don't know, maybe not
Well, there's a
definite,
light
but
at the
just
end of the tunnel
right.
for
Okay.
everything. So God gives nuggets always. So you have to look at every single piece that he gives you, whether it be, when the sun comes up that day, gives you a brand new day. I
Mhm.
mean, whatever he gives you, you have to take each and every moment. So there's obviously a reason that we go through these things. Of course,
Right.
most of them are by choice,
Sure.
but we
Right.
have to go
Right.
through something to get to where we need to be, to
Right.
shape, mold us in life. Um, so I would just say that, if you're going through a bad divorce or whatever it may be, people need to seek out other people because people need people. God didn't put us all here on this planet
Right. Yeah.
for us to be loners.
Right.
Yeah.
You need that
Um,
fellowship.
but I think, you need to seek out people who's been through that, can help give you advice on that.
Right.
Because you can't be alone and go through that yourself.
Right.
You need other people to help you with that.
Right. Let me just piggyback on that. So on the other side of the person that's feeling unworthy and maybe need help, what's the motivating, the extra in an ordinary person that's going to be the extraordinary to push them to that place of help to help someone else? How do they become that person to pour into somebody else's life through that?
By not judging,
Okay.
because you don't know what people go through in their shoes. It's easy for you to step aside and look and say, oh, because people don't want to be judged
Right.
for what they did.
Right.
So I think sometimes if they seek out people, they're worried about them getting judged.
Right.
So I think as believers in church, we need to set a precedence as far as how we relate to people. Well, to be able to help somebody along the way and not judge them.
Gotcha. Good.
Because it's easy to judge,
Very right.
but I just think that we, as a people, need to set a presence for that in the body because people need us.
Right. No, that's good. That's good.
We kind of went over this already. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone struggling in their faith? Maybe kind of where you were at before you kind of had that aha moment.
Well, I would say for me, it's about learning to motivate what God has for you for your best, because no one else has your back like God does. I mean,
Right.
and I don't understand how people live without hope.
Right.
God is hope.
Right.
And even if you're struggling, you have to find a way to understand that God is for you.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and to give you that nugget to be able to get up every day.
Do you think that was I guess planted in you from those times when you didn't think church was that big of a deal?
Yes.
And when the stories and the color and everything didn't seem, was that when that was planted? Do you feel like you reverted back to that? Because I guess my point is coming from a student pastor point of view. A lot of times parents are like, the student ministry is not a big deal. They'll find it when they get older. But something was still drawing you. There was still something planted there. It sounds like, correct?
Yes, and I'm glad you said that because earlier in my life when I was real little, I was sick a lot, and I had severe allergy and asthma. And my mom was a single mom at the time, and but I remember her talking to me about Jesus, and I remember her saying, when you walk down the street, I want people to look at you and know, that Jesus is in your heart, and I want you to be good to people. And I didn't really understand any of that, but I had heard it. But then as time went on, when she remarried, and my dad adopted me, that's when life changed for me.
Right.
But I always remember that part when I was little and I didn't really understand that.
Right.
But like you said, now it all came back
Yeah.
as the aha moment
Yeah.
with
Right. That's good.
with that.
Making it personal
making
and
it
everything. It just
personal.
kind of
Yes.
had that intersection. There's
Yes.
something there.
Yes, it did.
That's really good. That's good.
Keeps coming back to those
Yeah.
nuggets.
Yeah.
Yes.
It does. That's right. I mean,
Yes.
and just because I think we sometimes we don't think it's that important, but I mean, it has to be planted at some point, you know. And
Right.
you know, as a student pastor or former student pastor, I'm like, man, we got to get them here, you know, and got to get them
Right.
back in now with COVID and stuff. We're blessed here, but we got to get these kids back in and start planting it in. Even because I think one of the biggest things, and I know we're kind of closing with this, I see with you and Jeff and with Stacy and Bob, that there's something different when the way you carry it. So I see Jesus in you guys. I want you to know that. I'm
Thank
telling you
you.
that today. And so whatever the Lord's doing with that, you're walking that faith, that faith walk out, I believe, wholeheartedly. And to know some of your story has just been, it even speaks more to me now. I'm like, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
you've had those things in your background and that we didn't know about, and you're still walking this out. Man, God is so good.
Thank
And
you.
I think and maybe you could, I mean, even the testament of that, you're a walking testimony in that. So it's been really good. It's been really, really
Well,
good.
one thing I did when I had
Yeah, sure.
was that when I was starting to go to church full time, I was sick and I was out. I had surgery and I was out for about 2 weeks. And I hadn't even been at that church that long. Every day somebody brought me food.
Really.
Every single day somebody different brought me food. And that's when my life changed as far as learning to love humanity,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
because I didn't know any of those people and they didn't know me. And I'm like, wow, people do that? People do that?
Yeah.
You were kind of like real bitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's visible in y'all's life, though.
Yes.
It really is. That's visible.
So I think it's important
Mhm.
to help those out who don't even know us.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I think sometimes too, you know, small groups help each other
Right.
because
Yeah.
we get to know people individually,
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
and help other people out that don't know us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're not judging,
Yeah.
if that makes
even,
sense.
We just go last week with what everything's happened at the Hess house. That's a prime example of that.
Exactly.
Exactly. Oh,
That's-
that's another whole topic.
That's right. You could go down that road.
I love that.
But it goes right along with the reaching out part that we're really wanting to. We feel like the Lord's going to take us to a new level in here, and so I think this spoke to it greatly. I mean, it's been good. It
Thanks
really
for
has.
chatting with us.
Welcome.
I will say, I don't know. It's just such a small thing, but when you just said about like the whole nuggets and everything, that like God still has I just feel like someone needs to hear that God still has a purpose for you.
Huh,
because
that's
it's like
good.
you love them.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
His mercies are new every day, no
Every
doubt.
day.
Every day, and it doesn't
Just
change.
forget to remember that.
Yeah,
Like we woke up this morning.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Blessed, for sure.
That's really good.
Anyway,
That's
we
right.
enjoyed having you here. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you,
and chatting with
Lynn.
us.
Thank you.
Guys, we will see you next week.
See ya.